Hi, 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 and hey, hey, and welcome once again to a Beatles talk show podcast called Talk More Talk, a solo Beatles video cast that we do every 2 weeks here, usually live at 9 p.m. Eastern on Monday nights. I'm Ken Michaels. I'm one of the four regular co-hosts of the show. Hopefully, you're familiar with the other programs that I do on the Beatles, a syndicated radio show, which is on around 50 radio stations at the moment called Every Little Thing. Another talk show podcast called Things We Said Today that I co-host with Alan Kozin and Darren DeVivo. And I also have my own YouTube channel, which is all about the Beatles, just conversations about them, called Ken Michaels Radio. And I'm being joined, as I usually am, with my partners in crime here. And we'll start with Kit O'Toole, who is the queen, of course, of Beatles social media. And she is also the author of several books, including Songs We Were Singing, Guided Tours through the Beatles' lesser known tracks, Michael Jackson FAQ, All That's Left to Know About the King of Pop, and also Fandom in the Beatles that she collaborated with our colleague Ken Womack. And she's really all over the place. She also is involved with another Beatles podcast, Toppermost of the Poppermost. And she writes lots of articles on all different types of music, really specializing quite a lot in soul music as well. Kit, welcome.
Thank you. My friends and I say good evening to all of you tonight.
Mm-hmm. Also, we have one of the two co-hosts of the very popular solo Paul McCartney podcast, Two Legs. He co-hosts that with Annie Nichols. Always busy, cranking out shows all the time. Tom Hunyadi, how you doing?
I'm wonderful, Ken. Thank you very much, and it's great to see everybody and all of you out there watching. Let's have fun with this one. I can't wait to see what you guys think about this particular album that we're going to be talking about tonight. So,
okay, you want a hint as to what it is? Just look behind Kit.
Yeah.
Also, she always has the best backdrops. We all acknowledge that. But one of the problems I have with all the t-shirts that I wear is that you never get to see. It's always lower than where the camera is. But this is a Dark Horse shirt.
Oh, wow. Hey, cool.
I'm prepared for the show tonight. Yeah. But it looks better on with you in front of it, Kit.
Yep.
Also, we have Joe Mayo with us from the very, very popular channel on YouTube, Mean Mr. Mayo. Does all kinds of things, talks about the Beatles quite a lot about popular culture, reviews all kinds of albums, does his Fab Gab feature where he rates tracks from Beatle albums and solo Beatle albums. Hello, Joe.
Hello, Ken. Hello, Kid. Hello, Tom. Let's go and talk about George. Let's go get this show on the road.
All right. Well, tonight on the program, sort of as a tribute to George, we've all been doing tribute shows to George on our respective shows. We thought we'd do one of our most popular features, which is called Another Listen. And that's when we examine a solo Beatle album that maybe you feel deserves to get more recognition. Isn't that familiar to the general public? Something that we can talk about in depth. So we decided, because we're getting a lot of people writing in, asking us to talk about this album, it would be George's 1974 album called Dark Horse. And so there you go. Still, Kit's backdrop rules.
Yep.
So it doesn't really matter what we put up.
Exactly.
Can't beat that.
Kit wins again.
Always.
She's the queen.
It is she.
Yeah.
It is she.
Very nice. It is
Nicely played, sir.
So we'll be talking about that at length, and we'd love to hear everyone's comments about the album and what we're talking about in the next hour or so. But before we do that, as usual, we have a bit of Beatle news to get to. The last show that we did, which was the tribute to Yoko, we wanted to keep it really focused on Yoko with our special guest, Madeline McCarroll. So we have quite a lot of catching up to do. In the last few weeks, birthday greetings were sent out to George Harrison with, as I said, February 25th, marking what would have been his 80th birthday. Paul McCartney sent the message online, "Happy would have been to my mate George Harrison." Ringo Starr posted, "Happy 80, my friend. Peace and love. I miss you, man." Meanwhile, Yoko Ono celebrated her 90th birthday on February the 18th. The big news about Yoko is that she has decided to leave Manhattan and the Dakota building that she has made her home for 50 years. And she has relocated to a 600-acre farm near Franklin, New York, which she and John bought in 1978. The Daily Mail is reporting that Yoko has decided to move there full-time and has no plans to return to the Dakota, the apartment she once shared with John. And at the same time, there's no suggestion that she plans on selling the apartment. This is a major change of pace for Yoko, who's been forced to step back from public life because of her ill health in recent years. Yoko, in fact, celebrated her 90th birthday with a party at the farm with her longtime friend and publicist, Elliot Mintz, son Sean, and his girlfriend and musician Charlotte Kemp Moule. And Elliot says there was plenty of singing and laughter at the party, which went on throughout the afternoon and lasted until about 9 p.m.
Yeah, that's about when I want to go to bed too, about 9. Get everybody out, get on the couch, watch a movie, maybe fall asleep on the couch.
We're all falling asleep a little bit earlier as we get older.
Yeah,
That's right. Don't blame Yoko at all.
yeah.
Well, a lot was made in the last few weeks that Paul McCartney will be guesting on the new Rolling Stones album, and that Paul has laid down a bass part for one of the songs to be produced by Andrew Watt, the producer that Paul has been saying he's done some work with recently. Initial reports that Ringo was also going to be guesting on the new album have been refuted at this point. Recording sessions took place in recent weeks, and the album's production is said to be nearing the mixing phase. It will also include tracks with the Stones' late drummer Charlie Watts, who died in 2021 at the age of 80. Of course, it's big news because it's a Beatle with the Rolling Stones. And, as I said in my other podcast, it would be really cool if there was any footage of this, of Paul in the studio with them. But I know my colleague Darren said, from what he understands, it was something where, he was sent the tracks and he laid down his bass part. So that would be like a great video for a single.
Yeah.
No kidding. Love to
look,
see
they're
that.
they're all friends. Both factions are, who knows much longer they're going to be around. I say let anybody work together, whoever they want to work with. If it's a great track, then that's just the icing on the cake. I'm kind of looking forward to seeing how this track turns out.
I was kind of hoping there was going to be a little more, at first it made it sound like Paul was going to be doing some singing or something. And I was all prepared to say, if this would be the final Stones album, you could say their career started with I Want to Be Your Man and ended with Paul on the album. But,
that would have been perfect.
Yeah.
Oh, that would have been great.
Yeah.
But I agree. I'm looking forward to hearing the track.
I really hope it's a really interesting bass line that Paul adds to it. Be really cool.
Yeah, I hope it's something because, Paul says they're just a blues band. So hopefully he can add something else to it.
I think he might have regretted saying that because Mick came back
You
and
think?
Maybe this is him making up for that comment.
Yeah.
Maybe this is him making up for that comment.
Okay. All right. Also, big news of the last few weeks is that the solo catalog of George Harrison has moved to Dark Horse Records via BMG. This includes the 12-album catalog from 1968's Wonderwall music to 2002's Brainwash, plus Live in Japan, Let It Roll, songs by George Harrison, Early Takes Volume 1, the Apple Years box set 1968 to 1975, and the Dark Horse Years 1976 to 1992. In celebration of George's 80th birthday on February 25th, Dark Horse BMG released his entire catalog on Dolby Atmos surround sound, exclusively on Apple Music. But other interesting news regarding the Dark Horse label is that they've been busy acquiring back catalogs, including 16 albums from the late Leon Russell. They also signed a deal with Yusuf Islam, the artist formerly known as and still to some as Cat Stevens. Cat Stevens, or Yusuf, will have a new album coming out on Dark Horse, and he does an acoustic guitar version of Here Comes the Sun on the album. They're also planning an album from longtime Tom Petty keyboard player Ben Montench. So, as witnessed from acquiring the catalog of Joe Strummer, Dark Horse looks to be more than just reissuing the back catalog. Now, in our last show, we mentioned several upcoming releases for Record Store Day, which is April 22nd, including a half-speed master vinyl for Wings' album Retro Speedway, a 9 EP white vinyl box set for the recent John Lennon compilation Give Me Some Truth, and both a 2 LP version, and I have to correct myself, I said a 1 LP version of Stop and Smell the Roses from Ringo. It's actually a CD, one CD. And only 500 copies were made of that, along with the soundtrack album for the Western film Blind Man, which Ringo wrote the title theme for, but his song was never in the soundtrack. We neglected to also mention 2 Dark Horse albums that will be coming out. That's Joe Strummer and his band, the Mescaleros. The Streetcore album that they made will be available with 1,760 copies made, and a band that was on Dark Horse, the Stairsteps. They used to be the 5 Stairsteps, if you remember Ooh Child. They also recorded Dear Prudence, which I think might have been the B-side of that single. It's one of their singles. Well, the Stairsteps' second album, it's called Second Resurrection, was on Dark Horse in 1975. And they're releasing that for Record Store Day. 1,410 copies made for that. All right. So that's everything for Record Store Day for Beatle fans. Cool. March 15th, there'll be a big concert honoring Paul McCartney at Carnegie Hall, with various artists all performing his songs. Peter Asher will be there. Denny Lane is scheduled to appear. Now, I just saw Denny in concert. He did an all-acoustic show, him alone. And he announced that he'll be performing with Christopher Cross and doing Mull of Kintyre at this show.
Oh, very cool.
He'll be performing with Nancy Wilson of Heart fame, and they're doing Band on the Run. Also appearing will be Natalie Merchant, Betty Levette, Lyle Lovett, Bruce Hornsby, Graham Nash, the Cactus Blossoms, and others. No word as to whether or not Paul will show up.
That's a cool lineup.
Yeah. Big event, March 15th at Carnegie Hall. Rolling Stone magazine just came up with another one of their useless lists. Their top 50 genuinely horrible albums by brilliant artists. And 3 solo Beatle albums made the list. At number 30 was Paul's Give My Regards to Broad Street. Number 19 is George's Gone Troppo. And at number 7, Unfinished Music number 1, Two Virgins by John and Yoko. First of all, how could you put Two Virgins in the same category as all the pop albums that they put on the list?
What's Broad Street doing on that list?
It's a soundtrack. I mean, shouldn't that be considered?
Well, I mean, it's not that bad. I don't, the movie's another story, but I don't mind the soundtrack.
I don't either.
Yeah, I mean, if they were doing, bad movies by brilliant artists, then I would say, put Broad Street on there.
Yeah.
Okay, you might get some feedback from that comment there, Tom.
I know I will. I'm not worried about that.
We have to be honest here. I think these people at Rolling Stone need to watch our show. That's what I think. Might change their opinions. All right, the band Brothers of the Heart have just released their second album called Listen to the Music, in which they covered the Wings hit Let 'Em In. The band includes award-winning artists Jimmy Fortune, Ben Isaacs, Bradley Walker, and Mike Rogers. The album consists of the group's interpretations of pop, country, and gospel songs, and the group also recorded a TV special from the Grand Ole Opry, which just aired on RFD TV. Their entire album you can hear on YouTube, and it's been released on CD and DVD. New cover of Let 'Em In. Another cover version to announce comes from our friend, Fernando Perdomo. As you'll recall, he helped to produce the recent tribute album to Paul and Linda's album, Ram, called Ram On, which he worked on with drummer Denny Sywell. Fernando discovered the Beatles song Tomorrow Never Knows, and he got Greg Bissonette to drum on.
Oh, cool.
You can check that out on YouTube. Also, jazz pianist Brad Mehldau has just released an album of all jazz renditions of Beatles songs called Your Mother Should Know. Brad Mehldau plays the Beatles on the None Such label. It includes renditions of I Am the Walrus, Maxwell's Silver Hammer, Babies in Black, I Saw Her Standing There, For No One, She Said, and the title track to Your Mother Should Know. Also, Luca Perassi's new book on Paul is officially out now. It's called You Have It Already?
Darn tootin' I do.
Jeez. I'm getting it in the mail. Luca is sending me a copy.
Oh,
Cool.
boy, I don't have
It's in
anything
the
yet.
mail.
Is this another one that I'm going to have to do that I don't have the book?
Yep.
Yet. I get, by the way, I get the book, the folks, but don't worry, I get it by the time the show comes.
Yes, absolutely.
Tom Hunyadi, his new podcast show, Ahead of the Curve.
You got to be ready these days, you know? You got to.
That's right.
I know. Anyway,
I got lots
the
on my
new book
plate,
is
man.
called Paul McCartney, Music is Ideas, The Stories Behind the Songs, Volume 1, 1970 to 1989. Luca is known for his previous book on Paul, Recording Sessions.
That one's on
You
you.
don't have it.
That one's on you. There you go.
I don't have that.
Recording Sessions 1969 to 2013, a journey through Paul McCartney songs after the Beatles. The new book is 542 pages,
Yeah.
and it consists of 346 song sheets. That means entries. 346 songs he talks about here, including songs written by other composers as well. And there's also 50 unreleased tracks that are covered here, providing detailed information in the book of musicians and recording dates, also anecdotes, contemporary interviews, together with exclusive interviews with key personnel by the author. It's enriched with over 1,000 footnotes and with dozens of illustrations and photographs. Also, albums, tours, and other events provide a background to the stories behind the songs. Luca also has a volume 2 planned for next year. And he's been a busy man in many ways where Paul is concerned, because he was appointed one of 2 official Italian translators for Paul's lyrics book, and also collaborated with MPL on the label copy for Paul's singles box set.
Wow.
I just did a really brief interview with him this afternoon, which I put on my YouTube channel, Ken Michaels Radio. It's a sneak peek into the brand new book from Luca, which you should check out. All right, before we get to our main topic, a few major passings to note. In the past, got to be 3 weeks now or so, we have to mention the death of Burt Bacharach, who is without a doubt one of the greatest songwriters we've ever had. As far as the Beatles are concerned, the Beatles covered one of his songs, Baby It's You. We also know that in the Brian Epstein camp, artists who were managed by Brian and produced by George Martin, Billy J. Kramer recorded Trains and Boats and Planes, another Bacharach and Hal David song. Cilla Black recorded Anyone Who Had a Heart and Alfie. And Paul McCartney posted on his Twitter account a photo of himself with Bacharach and Jimmy Buffett, sharing, "Dear Burt Bacharach has passed away. His songs were an inspiration to people like me. I met him on a couple of occasions, and he was a very kind and talented man who will be missed by us all. His songs were distinctive and different from many others in the 60s and 70s. In a follow-up tweet, McCartney said, "When we met not too long ago, he reminded me that he had been the musical director for Marlene Dietrich when the Beatles shared the bill with her at the Prince of Wales Theatre. That was for the Royal Variety Performance Show.
Wow.
He was a lovely man. Nancy and I send lots of love to his family." Also, another legend that passed away was Raquel Welch, who I know is known for being mainly a sex symbol, but apart from that and her film roles, she starred in The Magic Christian with Ringo and Peter Sellers, where she played the villainous Princess of the Whip. In the film, she's dressed in an armored leather bikini with a headdress, leather cuffs, and bullwhip, leaving nothing to the imagination. Raquel died after a brief illness. She was 8. And also, we learned just recently of the passing of R&B artist Chuck Jackson. Chuck was the original artist behind the song I Keep Forgetting, which Ringo covered on his Old Wave album. And he's best known for the hit Any Day Now, which was covered by a lot of artists like Elvis Presley and an artist that I know Tom and I both like very much.
Ronnie Milsap.
And legend, Ronnie Milsap.
Yep.
Great cover.
And
Yes.
by the way, who do you think wrote the song Any Day Now?
Yes, who did?
Burt Bacharach.
Oh.
Everything comes back to Burt Bacharach.
Yes.
Sure, I suppose.
It's like Kevin Bacon.
Yep.
All right, so that's it for Beatle news this time. Okay, so
Great.
some background right now as we talk about the Dark Horse album. 1974 was a very busy year for George Harrison.
Yes.
He took a sabbatical where he spent time in India in February. In March, he recorded the Shanker Family and Friends album in Los Angeles at A&M Records. He also formed a publishing company, Oops Publishing, for his British publishing. He launched his own label, Dark Horse Records, on May the 23rd, and the formation of the label was announced at a press conference in Paris, and that was in June. He also worked on Splinter's album, The Place I Love. He spent about a year working on that album. He played on it, produced it. It was the first release on Dark Horse, their debut release. And George is all over that album. His fingerprints are all over it. Really sounds very much like a George Harrison album. He worked with Ravi Shankar, producing a concert called Music Festival from India at the Royal Albert Hall in London. That was on September the 23rd, and accompanied Ravi's musicians on a European tour. And that tour wrapped up the second week in October. He also worked on his own Dark Horse album and launched his first full-scale tour of the US, and that ran from November 2nd. It was a North American tour. Started in Vancouver, November 2nd, went till December the 20th at Madison Square Garden for 2 shows there. 45 concerts in 26 cities spread over 7 weeks.
Wow.
Rehearsals for the tour, he spent 2.5 weeks in LA in October for that. And the Dark Horse album was released on December the 9th that year, over a month after the tour started, with less than 2 weeks left.
Yeah.
What a crime that was. I don't know anybody that does a tour that doesn't have, if they're promoting their new album, the album should be out by then.
Wow.
And so the Dark Horse album, George worked on a bit in his own studio in November of 73, also in August and September of 74, and at A&M Studios in LA in October of 74. And also a big thing that happened to George that year in 74, he broke up with Patty. So this album, in a lot of ways, I think has been ridiculed a bit, with, you know, the media always harping on the word horse and doing a play on that word because George's voice sounded hoarse to some people on the album. And having witnessed him in concert that year, I'm so happy that I had a chance to go to that tour. I could understand the criticism somewhat. I barely heard George's voice during the concert. Could also be the mix where I saw him at the Nassau Coliseum on Long Island. But you know, usually when you talk about George Harrison and his solo career, you usually hear the same things, like All Things Must Pass was his crowning achievement, made a big comeback with Cloud 9. But I also know, thankfully, from doing shows like this and things we said today on all the Beatle podcast shows out there, I truthfully feel that more people are respecting George's catalog overall and specific albums of his. And we talk about these albums here on this show, and we're going to talk right now about specifically Dark Horse. And I know that usually whenever we do these Another Listen shows, because I tend to be the elder statesman here, actually me and Joe are the elder statesmen of this show. We could be fortunate enough to say that we remember when the album came out. Tom was one when the album came out, so I'm sure he has vivid memories of Dark
Oh,
Horse.
this great time.
And Kid was only a few years old when Dark
Yeah.
Horse.
Totally remember.
So there's a huge difference between growing up and being exposed to it. And as I've said about myself, I feel very fortunate that where the Beatles are concerned, the group and the solo years, I got to hear all the music as it came out chronologically, as it happened. It could be a completely different experience if you're young now or you're a teenager and you're just getting into the Beatles, you don't even know where to start. You might not do things chronologically. You might just bounce around and go different decades, and everybody's different in the way that they handle listening to this music. But I know that for myself, and maybe for Joe, I'm going to find out since we're going to talk to Joe first. What do you remember about Dark Horse when it first came out? What was your initial reaction to it?
Okay. Absolutely nothing.
What a great start.
Yeah. And the reason why I say that is everything you said, Ken, building this up, is that it's true. I have fond memories of these albums for the most part, but I was 12 in 74 and not yet on my Beatles kick yet. In 74, that was the year that my friend that lived across the street uh, played his Beatles albums for me.
Mm.
And I had remembered them from being like 6, 7, 8 years old, like that, and hadn't listened to them since. So I kind of was rediscovering the Beatles, but it wasn't until around 76, 77 that I would be getting more into the solo stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I have no firsthand recollection when it comes to Dark Horse. I wasn't really into it yet, getting the solo stuff as it came out. And in fact, I was thinking in preparation for the show, when did that occur that I first heard it? And I
Mm.
can't remember this one. Some of them I can remember. Well, maybe I caught up with like I don't know, the McCartney album somewhere at a store or something. I bought it at. Don't remember when I first heard Dark Horse. So I don't have any recollection. But when I first heard, I can tell you what I thought when I first heard it. If
Mm.
that's why I didn't really like it much at all when I first heard it at that particular time. I must have been about, I'm going to say 17 or something like that. And I liked, the only thing I really liked was the Ding Dong single. And I got a hold of the single first thing. Somewhere I found the single, and I used to play that, even though it's more of a New Year's song. Really, it fits the holiday season anyway. The whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
You can play it at the Christmas time, or you could play it New Year's. And I came to like that, even though I could tell his voice on that particular track is not very good. That's one of them where I think the hoarseness of his voice, the roughness, comes through. And for the record, upon revisiting this album, I didn't think that his voice sounded all that hoarse on every song. Some of
No.
them I thought, no, that doesn't sound bad on this. Only certain tracks. And warbly, maybe, yeah, but somewhat warbly, a little whiny, and things like that. But that's all I had to go with, for the beginning was Ding Dong
Okay.
initially.
Well, I can tell you that from my perspective, I don't really recall the criticism at the time about George's voice, except when the tour was panned. I don't really remember much being said about the album with his voice being hoarse at that time. And there's one parallel I want to make here, because when Dark Horse first came out, I listened to it religiously every single day, grew to love all the songs. Didn't really hear too much in George's voice that was all that bad, and I got used to it. It kind of reminded me in many ways when I was a little kid growing up and I heard Twist and Shout. I loved Twist and Shout. And I loved John's voice on Twist and Shout. And I thought, what a great rock and roll voice. Of course, it was that way on so many songs that he did at the time. And then later on, you learn that the Please Please Me album, 10 of the 14 songs were done in one day. Twist and Shout was the last song that they recorded, and John's voice was shot. Okay, and he was sucking on lozenges. He was giving it all he got. I never would have thought that growing up, listening to Twist and Shout. I loved his voice just the way it was. But now we have that narrative that's driven into our brains about Twist and Shout and John's voice. I love his voice just the way it was on Twist and Shout. But I never would have thought there was anything wrong with it. And for the most part, I was very used to George's voice on Dark Horse. Yeah, you can hear a strain here and there, like you mentioned, Joe, on Ding Dong Ding Dong. The yesterday, today was tomorrow. That part, like he's straining. There are a few moments there, but for the most part, I liked his voice on Dark Horse. I got very used to it. And I grew to love really all the songs. Even Bye Bye Love, which everybody pans. It's just a unique arrangement to it. But let's talk to Tom and to Kit about this. Your initial reaction. When did you first listen to the Dark Horse album? Kit, let's start with you.
Yeah, I've been trying to remember when I first heard it. I'm guessing it was probably after Cloud 9 came out, because I was just starting to get into George's solo catalog, starting to get into it extensively around that, probably that time. I mean, I already had All Things Must Pass, of course, Cloud 9, and probably I think the Greatest Hits album, the Best of Dark Horse, and that had Dark Horse on it, and that probably was the first song that I heard from that. And I think some radio stations were still playing that song, Dark Horse, some of the classic rock stations. And so I knew that song, and and I was kind of used to hearing the rough vocals on that song. So initially, I guess I didn't think much of it, because it's just kind of like that. I was used to it, But I think it was a case of, and Tom, I'll be interested to hear your thoughts too. When I was then reading up on George's life and his career and all, you tended to read what an awful album this was, how he sounded terrible, the tour was awful, the whole thing. I mean, that was the accepted, supposedly, wisdom of the time. So I kind of went into this album then with that mindset. You're like, oh, this is going to be an awful album. And so when I listened to it, that's kind of, I had kind of that opinion. And it just shows you how, when you are reading that stuff and that, before listening to the album, it does color your affect your listening. I mean, it really does. And so I did kind of think, oh yeah, this is kind of a weak album. And yeah, I can hear where, the voice is strained, and yeah, this is kind of a weaker album. And yeah, Ding Dong Ding Dong I kind of liked, and I did like the song Dark Horse, but that was about it. And so I then kind of put it away for years. But I really think that the biographies I read and some of the other books really affected how I listened to the album and shaped my opinion of it. But has it changed? Well, we'll find out tonight.
Well, excuse me, but Kit, you made me think of something I forgot to mention. The first time I heard Dark Horse was on the Best of George Harrison album.
Yeah.
That's the first time that I heard it, and I remember going to Seaside Heights in New Jersey. There was a boardwalk with games on there, and you win albums, and I won the Best of George Harrison, and that was the only song, in addition to the Ding Dong Ding Dong single I had, that I remember hearing. So I'll talk, just if I can, just a minute, a little bit about the song Dark Horse. I really love that song now. I mean, I got used to it from the Best of George Harrison.
Right.
And although that's one of the most telling audio signs, I think, of his strained voice and the problems with his voice on that, after all, there's a version that you hear now what is it? Is it a demo or
Yeah.
a early
Demo one
version of
that's
it?
a bonus.
Really good. Yeah.
Yeah, and his voice is really good on that. But yet, like Ken was saying about getting used to it, I've come to accept that, much like Twist and Shout. You're used to hearing that,
Yeah.
I guess, with the song Dark Horse. So I
Mhm.
actually like the strain of the Dark Horse song. Well, but I
Mhm.
could say, his voice wasn't in great shape singing it, but I kind of like the song that way. Although the other one that sounds so much better vocally is kind of an improvement, somehow after being so weaned on the album version of it, it's hard to accept the other one.
Yeah, there was a reissue that came out in 2014 of Dark Horse, and it was part of the Apple box set, Apple Years box set. So that one, yeah. And not only that, but the song Dark Horse is such a unique composition in a way, because I hadn't heard anything like that, probably from most artists. But the way that it kicks in with the acoustic guitar and that opening riff was very different and very unique, which drew me to it, you know.
I like the flutes on it, right?
Oh
Uh,
yeah,
I like that a lot.
definitely. Well, you're keeping me in suspense, Kit. So we're gonna have to wait to see what
That's
your
right.
impression is of the
That's
songs.
a little teaser.
Tom, how about you?
Well, Ken, regarding your comment about the raspiness of Lennon's vocals, if this was a more high energy album, I would agree with your assessment on that. But
Hmm.
this isn't really a high energy record, in my opinion. So, your thoughts on the raspy voice, I get it, I understand. But being younger and then looking back on it now, we maybe Kit and I maybe have a different thoughts on it because we didn't live it real time.
Yeah.
We didn't get to experience it. Unfortunately, you said that you really couldn't hear his vocals on the tour,
Hmm.
which was a shame. But anyways, this is kind of funny. When did the Dark Horse Years box set come out?
I think it was
Was it
2012.
before? No, that's
When
the
was
George Harrison. The Apple Years came out. The Dark Horse Years one came out first, I believe. But anyways, I had gotten that set, and I held off on buying three CDs, Living in the Material World, Dark Horse, and Extra Texture, only because of the fact that, okay, well, this Dark Horse Years box just came out. Maybe we'll get the earlier albums out here soon. Well, we had to wait another 10, 12 years, or however long for that box set. So I didn't listen to this album, unfortunately, and I kicked myself in the butt for this until a couple days after he died. A CD store that I went to, had his stuff, and I just kept passing out. I'll get it. I'll get it. I'll get it. Well, he dies. I rushed to that CD store. I bought the 3 CDs that I didn't have in my collection yet, and it was, like I said, Dark Horse, Extra Texture, and Living in the Material World. So that being said, listening to it, it was an interesting listening experience. Obviously I knew Dark Horse, I knew Ding Dong Ding Dong. But some of it didn't jive with me that much. I was familiar with Bye Bye Love, so it was interesting to see what he did with that.
Hmm.
You can say that some of this is kind of biographical, in a way some songs were. But to be honest with you, this wasn't a blow me away record when I first heard it. Like Kit, once you realize or you learn why his voice was like that, because right off the bat, the first vocal song, Simply Shady, track 2, you get it right off the bat. What's wrong with his vocals? Why doesn't his vocals sound as good as they did on All Things Must Pass? Why didn't they sound good on Cloud 9? So obviously that's when you go back and you learn this stuff and you go, okay. And then, some of the reasons that you talked about at the beginning, launching Dark Horse, recording Splinter, recording with Ravi,
Ravi
doing
Shankar
all of
and
these,
Friends.
Ravi
Shankar,
Shankar, the tour he had to get ready for, the Dark Horse album he had to do. I mean, that's pressure and stress right there will do things to you,
Right.
in strange ways, and maybe that's some of those could be the reasons why he ended up with the hoarse voice or the raspy or the Rod Stewart voice, if you want to say,
Well, I can tell you, I didn't hear that
Mhm.
I didn't hear that much hoarseness in his
Right.
voice when the album
Right.
came out. It just sounded
Yeah.
pretty natural to me.
Yeah, I wasn't blown away lyrically by this album as I was with other albums of his. But because maybe you had instrumental, you had a couple mantra type songs, not really ding dong. I mean, that wasn't really lyrically challenged either.
I got some lyrics written out.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's got a couple, but I mean, it's not like run of the mill. It's just, challenging songs or deep thought songs. So this was okay. Over the years, my love for it has weaned or has grown. So I guess I listened to it again this past weekend, and I guess maybe it just didn't do anything for me like it has done in the past. I still enjoy it. I don't just dismiss it or anything like that. It's still a good album, but we'll get more into it as we go. But
Well, it's an unfortunate thing
yeah.
that, when you're doing shows like this, and I experienced this with things we said today, like Darren says to me, you've always got to have albums that you rate at the bottom in an artist's catalog, and everybody's got different opinions, and I'm not saying that that's my opinion, but there's so many sides to George Harrison. Some people prefer the more commercial side of him,
Right.
some like the more deep spiritual side of George, some like the very comical side of George. As we've talked about here a lot on this show, Crackerbox Palace, the video for Got My Mind Set on You doing the somersaults and all that, even though it's not really George.
No.
But stuff like that, there are people who love that. Ding dong, seeing him wearing all those suits in the video and all.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So there are people who go more for that side of George. Some people don't want the very preachy, serious George Harrison. Want something that's lighter. And I think that the songs on Dark Horse have meaning to George, especially something like It Is He, something chant-like like that. Some people look at this album as being very personal.
No.
He was going
So sad is what I want to
this,
talk about.
Yeah.
Well, I do want to say too that I mean,
with Patty.
Right.
So you can look at songs like So Sad, even though he started writing that in 1972. You can relate that to his situation, and certainly Bye Bye Love, adding some lyrics in there.
Right.
Oh, did he?
Yeah. but I do want to say musically, I think this is a superior record musically. I mean, the artist that he's had on this record, is amazing. Willie Weeks, we've talked about him, often, and a bunch of Keltner, Foreman, Ringo, and all a lot of people on this record. So musicianship wise, I think this is a great album.
You could never argue that point with any George Harrison album, because he always
you're absolutely right. Absolutely right.
Yeah, I can remember when this album came out, me being a radio geek, and in New York City, WPLJ, which was the rock station at the time, and the stuff that they played from it, and it got very decent airplay, this album. And it wasn't just the title track to Dark Horse. I did hear So Sad quite a lot on the radio, and I heard Maya Love a lot. I'm trying to remember, I might have heard Simply Shady, and I might have heard Harry's on Tour, but definitely Maya Love and So Sad, along with Dark Horse and Ding Dong, especially since it was towards the end of the year when the album came out. So I was very happy to hear this album getting airplay, and those are memories that stick with me. What got played on the air and what didn't get played on the air. But through the years, I've come to appreciate this album even more. And even if I might look at it as being one of his lesser albums, I think George's catalog is so solid all the way through. I'm not saying every song is great, but there's so much worthwhile material on all of his albums. I kind of look at, and we all expressed our opinions here. Maybe Extra Texture and Somewhere in England, the version that came out of Somewhere in England, might be, among the weakest, if you even want to call it weak. But Dark Horse to me, because there's so many great albums he's made, From All Things Must Pass. You know how I feel about Living in a Material World. 33 and a Third, George Harrison, two killer albums back to back.
Yeah.
On Trapo, I think, and we talked about that album here, very underrated album. And Cloud Nine and Brainwash are two brilliant albums. So when you mix all those albums together, there's got to be one or two that, are somewhere in the bottom of the list. And Dark Horse to me is kind of close to that, but I love the songs on there. Let's talk about the songs. Which ones do you like? Which ones do you not care for? Let's start with Joe again.
Well, the songs that I really like a lot, probably Simply Shady is probably my favorite song, maybe on there. I just, it's about George's life, kind of at the time being on a bender and drinking and binging and not really doing so well before he met Olivia, really, because he was having problems. But I don't know, there's a little bit of humor in there. I love the bit about mention of Sexy Sadie in it that we mentioned a couple of times. And I just love this. I don't know, the music of it, the musical part of it too. In addition to that, So Sad, I really like. I like the beginning, how it has a very wintry feeling, kind of reminded me a little. I don't know if I'd say maybe like Winter Rose, McCartney. Uh, and the lyrics, Tom was mentioning the lyrics. I mean, I probably didn't not analyzing every song lyric, but I did happen to notice these at this time around, and I wrote them down. Uh, like it says, now the winter has come to eclipse out the sun that has lighted my love for some time, and a cold wind now blows. Not much tenderness flows from the heart of someone feeling so tired, and he feels so alone with no love of his own. So sad, so bad. Uh, yeah, I like that one a lot. That's really is a touching song. Um, I mentioned Ding Dong, which I like. Dark Horse, which I like. Uh, Far East Man, written by George and Ron Wood. You know, I think Ron Wood did a version. I never heard the other version that Ron Wood did.
Yeah.
I didn't hear. I've never heard that version. It's okay. I like the slide guitar in it, and George's voice kind of shaky on it though. I like the song. It's not one of my very favorites. Um, I could also mention Harry's on tour, but to me that's kind of ordinary. It has a slide guitar bass to it that I like. It's an instrumental. I think that's supposed to be that's what he used to like theme the tour, right? That's
Right.
the
Sure.
tour theme. Uh, a lot of people think it's a great opener for this album. I think it would be a good side two opener, but I don't know. Uh, to open the whole album, I'm not so sure about it. But then again, looking at the other songs here, what would you open open it with? You know, there's no other real contender that really a really strong opener. I don't think so, unless you do Ding Dong, which is already flip them. Do Ding Dong to open the album and use uh, Harry's on tour on side two. Um, Looking at my notes here, the Bye Bye Love. I want to mention about that. The Everly Brothers song. Always hated that, George's version. Always hated
Okay.
it.
How
But
come?
listening to it more times in recent years, and especially on this recent listen, what makes it interesting is the change in lyrics, because
Mhm.
George just changed some of the words to fit his situation. When he sings, of course, we know the lyrics, and I guess I'll be the first to say them. I'm sure other people are going to write some of these down, but there goes our lady with you know who. I hope she's happy. Old Clapper too,
Yeah.
meaning Clapton. George's take on it makes it intriguing for me to listen to these days. Otherwise, it would be just an insipid, terrible, terrible version of a great song to me. It's not for George's take on it, which is interesting.
Mm.
And the only songs that I don't like on the album at all First of all, the worst song on the album, one of the worst songs in George's career, in my opinion. It is he, Jai Shri Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. Not for me. I don't like it at all. And people may be surprised. I see in the comments some people said they like Maya Love. Oh, no. It's monotonous to me. It's the same old thing over and over again. And before you say, but Joe, Ding Dong is the same thing over and over
Sure
again.
it is.
You like it? It's got a good tune at least, or a melody or something. I don't like the Maya Love one. It's just monotonous as all. Just a filler if ever there was one. And that's my feeling on the songs.
Interesting, because the songs that George did on the tour were Harry's on Tour, which you don't really care for, and Maya Love, and well, he did Dark Horse. So, yeah.
I wonder partly why it was a flop. Partly. Also changing a lot of Beatle lyrics.
Yeah.
I might have a slightly different opinion than you do.
I've been counting on it.
Kid, how about you? Your favorites, your the ones you possibly dislike?
Okay. All right. My all-time favorite on here is Far East Man. I
All right.
love Far East Man because it's got kind of an R&B flavor to it. I mean, come on. Of course I'm going to love it. Love the chord changes on it. It's just gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. And I have heard the Ron Wood version. And that's good too. That's good too. I guess I do like this version better with the sax, or the sax and the piano. But as I said, the Ron Wood version is good too, but it's obviously more guitars on it. But I just love this. As I said, bar none, my favorite song on the album. And sorry, Joe, I love Maya Love. I love that. I love that song.
You and Mark Zutkoff.
Yep. I love Maya Love. I just beautiful lyrics, and I just think that's a gorgeous song. So sad. You mentioned that. Just a heartrending song, and kind of typical of many songs on this album, and I'll keep you out of suspense. My opinion of this album has grown quite a bit. There's such a confessional tone to many of these songs, and maybe that's what some people didn't like about it. That are some of these songs depressing? Yes, they are. But So Sad is in that category, but I appreciate his honesty. I mean, he's in that song, he's kind of saying, yeah, I screwed up. I mean, in the marriage, I messed up, and Simply Shady. It's another one I've always really liked. Again, lyrically, I mean, he's painfully honest, because another reason I think that his voice blew out is that, after the breakup, I mean, he was doing some serious partying. Drinking, drugs, and he's awfully honest about it here. I mean, it's kind of saying here, it said, no sooner had I sown it when I began to reap, I was torn from shallow water and plunged into the deep, and as I started drowning, I clung onto a straw. I think cocaine was one of his drugs of choice at the time, that somehow kept me floating while my madness craved for more. I mean, that's a pretty good description of addiction, and it's, in a way, the music is very kind of, I don't know, it's sort of a country rock, as I remember that track. So it sounds, kind of catchy and all, but when you listen to the lyrics, they're pretty harrowing. So I like that juxtaposition. So, and of course, we've been mentioning Ding Dong, Ding Dong and Dark Horse. Those two songs I had already been, pretty familiar with, but still good tracks. Is his are his vocals flawless on all these tracks? No, but not as bad as I remembered. I mean, because again, you would read over and over again, the vocals were so rough, and
Right.
and but when you listen to it again, they're really not that bad. I mean, Dark Horse, yes, they were probably the roughest on that, but the others maybe not as strong as on, say, All Things Must Pass or Cloud Nine, as you mentioned, Tom, but not to the point of that they were terrible or anything.
Mhm.
The songs are still great. Ones I didn't care for. Bye Bye Love. I'm sorry. Those lyrics are so self-pitying and come on, George, you cheated on Patty, just as much, and the whole thing about, these ladies did me wrong, and it just stop. Just the lyrics just pissed me off, so I just didn't care for that at all. I mean, musically it was fine, but the lyrics just I just didn't care for. It Is He. I mean, musically it was pretty. Musically I liked it, but went on a bit too long. Too. I mean, it was interesting, but yeah. Harry's on tour. It was, it was nice. I wouldn't, as you said, Joe, I wouldn't have started the album with it. I thought that was kind of an odd choice, although I guess maybe you could argue it was sort of a prelude to, I think George even called this album Peyton Place or something, because it was describing the drama he was going through in his life. Interesting idea, but I just thought it was kind of kind of an anticlimactic opener. But the band played very well. I mean, the top shelf musicians, as we mentioned.
Yeah.
But just didn't do it for me.
Like
yeah, so those are my picks, but there were some great tunes on here that I think have aged well, and so not saying it's one of his top albums, as you said, Ken, but definitely better. I think it's aged better over time.
Okay. There's definitely some tracks in here that rate as essential to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, certainly So Sad I would put in that category.
Yeah.
And despite what Joe thinks, My Love, I think is really sad. But
I guess I'm the only one. It's one of those tracks, I guess.
You never know.
I'm going to be different from
You
it. It's going to
haven't
be the
heard-
Little Lamb Dragonfly of George, I guess.
That's right. I'm with you on the Little M Dragonfly.
Really?
Tom,
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
let's get your take now.
All right. Song-wise, Kit, you and I are together on the Far East Man and Simply Shady. I think those are the best two songs on this album. That's me. Ken, I am so glad that you've been able to get the raspy voice out somehow. I don't know how you do it, but or how you did it. But I mean, I listened to something that is so perfect musically wise and the song Dark Horse, and then I hear his vocals and I'm just like, man, I just wish he would have put that on the shelf and then just went back and did it when he was, in better vocals or better voice. Because I love it musically. And he tries and it's fine. I think it's a good song. I just think it suffers because of his vocals, unfortunately. I'm in agreement with Joe, and maybe we can talk about this more. I think the biggest problem with this album for me is the track listing. I think the track listing is wrong for this record. I understand it. I was reading on, he wanted the album to open like his tour opened, and you can get that. You understand that because of the fact that this album came out, or after the tour had started. So I can understand that. But when you're like someone like me or Kit, and you're going back and you're looking at it on the outside looking in, it's for me it just doesn't work. I've never been a biggest fan of instrumentals opening albums, if there ever was any. I think the title track,
Long-tailed winter bird.
Yeah, it's not a favorite of mine. It's good. It's not a favorite though, and I've said that, but You know, I would have said put the title track as the opening and end it with Ding Dong Ding Dong, maybe, because of the fact that it's, you know, it was December, right? The new year was coming anyway. So but yeah, those are my two favorite tracks. I do like Ding Dong Ding Dong, as simple as it is. It's catchy tune. I love the yesterday today was tomorrow, and tomorrow today will be yesterday. I love that line for whatever reason. I think that's just great.
Yeah.
Well, that was taken. Those are
Yeah,
written on the walls there.
exactly. And I would love to go to Friar Park just for that, just to read what you know.
Oh.
Yeah. I like the guitar work on So Sad and Maya Love. I think that's the best parts of those two songs, in my opinion. So yeah, I mean, it's got its good stuff. You know, I kind of like It Is He. I like the he who is complete, three worlds at his feet for some reason. I like that lyric. But yeah, you know, Simply Shady, Far East Man is great. But Ding Dong Ding Dong and Dark Horse are probably my favorite tracks.
Okay, so it's like a mid-level album for you.
What about Bye Bye Love?
It's the middle of the road album for me. Yeah, for George's discography.
Yeah, I didn't say where I placed the album. I didn't know if you. I don't know the.
We haven't
structure of
gotten
the
to that
show.
yet.
We haven't gotten to
already
that
said it.
Yeah.
I'm saving it. But
yeah, but if we're gonna talk about reasons why we don't like it, the track listing for me is probably the main thing that affects this album or bothers me about the album, whatever.
I think that's a fair assessment for the intro track. As you said, you know, I thought that was not a good choice to kick off with the
But you know, I'm
instrumental.
thinking is really, like I was saying, I don't think I'm looking at the list here, and there's nothing for me that I would think would be a strong opener. Even Dark Horse. Maybe I'm just used to hearing it later in the album. You know.
Yeah.
Right.
But I was thinking the same thing though. I think Dark Horse would have been a good opening track. You know.
I never once had a problem with the sequencing because I grew up with the album as it came out.
Yeah.
It's cemented in my brain that way.
Listen, I would love Ken to be able to say that I lived this real time, you know, just to see how different my take would be on all these records, you know.
Well, what does that matter? I don't think that has anything to do with it. I mean,
I think it does. I think
right?
when you're on the outside looking in, you look at these albums differently.
I'm talking about the sequencing. I can catch an album later and say I like the sequencing or not, depending whether I heard it when it was released or 10 years after it was released. It could be good sequencing or not to me. I don't get that.
I don't know. When music affects you and really has an impact on you, it isn't just, I mean, the songs are the most important thing to me, but when you're used to hearing an album a certain way, I mean, just take a look at the Beatles albums. I mean, the most important thing is that the songs are strong. But there was also reasoning they put behind the sequencing in the songs.
Right.
And, you know, what's a great opening track? What's a great song to close an album with? What's a great song to close side one on an album with?
Right.
You know, all those things kind of, you realize that the way those songs were placed was really brilliant. And I guess because, you know, I grew up on all this stuff at a young age, and I grew to love these albums as they were. And I don't always go through kind of like, you know, what we, especially you, Tom, because you do this a lot on Two Legs, you know, since Paul in particular makes so many albums where he's got extra material and he puts bonus tracks on CD singles, and what songs would you take off the album and what would you use as the bonus tracks and put them on the album instead. You know, I'm used to the albums the way they were.
Right.
You know,
I still don't understand. I want to make my argument about that, because it doesn't make a difference at all. When you could listen to an album in 1974 and think this is a great sequencing. You know, other people might listen in 74 and said, you know, I think it would have been better if they flip-flopped these two. Isn't it? How is it like a thing of repetition? It's not necessarily.
I just think that the songs on most of their albums make sense the way that it's sequenced. I really like Harry's on Tour as an opening track. I think it really, kicks off the album. It's an up-tempo instrumental. It was made to be done live, and I think it works on that level. And it's catchy, and I don't think it goes on too long. It ends just right. And it's a great song to do live. Just like
And as for the
Rock
Beatles
Show
you
was a
mentioned,
great song to do live, and was placed right there at the very beginning of Venus and Mars.
Mhm.
I think that it made sense for Harry's on tour. I don't know if Dark Horse would have been. I suppose, if Dark Horse was the opening track all these years, I'd be used to it that way.
right, by
Probably.
your logic, that would be the case, right? You would say, well, I heard it that way so it's good.
But
That's the way it should
I,
be.
I do think there's a lot of thought being put into the
No,
sequence.
there is, but
Oh,
you can
yeah.
still. I'm sure if we go through all the albums, solo albums we're talking about, I bet you there could be some that would have benefited different sequencings. Some people don't like "I Don't Know" at the beginning of Egypt Station.
Oh,
I happen to
hell,
like it.
maybe.
I happen to like that opening for that. Just so
Mhm.
Right.
subjective,
Mm.
Mhm.
But one thing I wanted to say about the Beatles was, of course, that's a whole other thing. The Beatles, yes, as you said, they put a lot of work into their sequencing, as John even talked about.
Mm.
But I think in some cases, okay, everybody get those tomatoes ready. I think Capitol
Uh-oh.
Records improved on the sequencing sometimes.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think that
That's
I'll
an
Be Back
argument for
it's
another
good where it
show,
was
I
second
think.
track. And I think you know what I'm saying. That's a whole show on
Mhm.
its own. But
Uh-huh.
Mm.
I've just seen a face as a great opener, even though the Beatles didn't intend it that way.
Yep.
And could it be that's also because that's how you grew up on it?
Mhm.
Yeah.
I think it's a better
Mhm.
opener, but it's not about again. I'll hit this into the ground if I have to. It's not
gonna
just
die on
about
this
how you
hill.
grew up. I don't understand this. That's part of it with some things, but sequencing, you can listen to a record when you first heard it, you could have said, this was really good, but man, it would have been cool to have this song at close the album, would even been stronger. Even if you only heard it once or twice,
Mhm.
you
Hmm.
could make that determination. Like I said, I used Egypt Station as an example. People right from when it first came out said, ah, I don't think I don't think I Don't Know is a good opener, although I liked it. I keep saying that. I
Oh,
happen to like
Hmm.
that one. This would have been better or whatever. Not a matter of how many times they heard it over like 40 years, So, yeah.
right. Well,
Right.
this
Yep.
for me is the only album I've ever felt that way for in George's catalog. I've only ever felt that way about this particular album, where I think it
Mhm.
would, benefit with a different track list, or different
Mhm.
sequencing.
Sequencing, yeah.
Hey, look, we
Yeah.
all got different opinions. That's what it's all
Yeah.
about.
You have to.
Hey,
It's all
That's what
about.
it's about.
Absolutely.
and so many times I've said where the Beatles are concerned, their songs are so strong you would have gotten used to them in any order.
Mhm.
Yeah.
In fact, if you take a look at a lot of what was done here in America, like with Meet the Beatles and With the Beatles, even though it started with I Want to Hold Your Hand Here, you still had the same sequence of many songs in a row from With the Beatles put on to Meet the Beatles. So, you know, anyway, I do like really all the songs on Dark Horse. Simply Shady and So Sad are outstanding songs, and I do like the lyrics that you pulled there from Simply Shady, Kit.
Yeah.
Very powerful there and deeply personal coming from George. I don't mind when he's confessional. I don't mind when he's showing you he's in pain. He's being honest.
Yep.
Isn't that what we admire John for so much all these years? Why can't George be the same?
Right. It's
Yeah,
not exactly
exactly.
See Moon.
Yeah.
What'd you say, Joe?
It's not exactly See Moon. See Moon.
Not many songs are, but and I like Seymour. But and I love So Sad. I especially love the guitar playing from George on there. He's
Yeah.
doing these, I guess you want to call them triplets. It's kind of similar to how he played Here Comes the Sun in a way. And really love the personal lyrics in there, the slide guitar playing. It's just a beautiful song altogether. What I like about Bye Bye Love is that it's a completely different arrangement. He could have easily went the Everly Brothers route and did one that was a carbon copy, and I probably would have liked it because George loved 50s rock and roll. He loved that kind of music. He's so at home doing that kind of stuff, but he did his own arrangement there. And it's kind of quirky, and he put in his own words there about Eric and Patty, and that's fine. I think he also kind of has a sense of humor about it all. Because if you think about what George was saying at the time, he said he'd rather that she was with him than some other jerk. So instead of just being upset that, the marriage didn't work out, Patty went to one of his best friends. Maya Love, I think, is an outstanding song. It's lively, it's catchy, it's funky. I love Billy Preston's piano playing on it. It's just right, perfect, exactly what needed to be played there on that song. And, there's a reason why he chose that one as a live song. Really do like it a lot. Ding Dong, I like because it's so darn catchy. I kind of look at it, maybe I shouldn't, as a bit of a novelty record, in a way, but it's a perfect song to sing on New Year's Eve.
It's fun.
And really and truly, if you think about it, it's more about embracing the present and saying that the past is the past, which could apply to any day of the year. I always loved Dark Horse as a song because it sounds so different, like I said, with that acoustic guitar intro and building the song around it. There aren't songs like that were on the charts that I can recall at that time. And I've grown to love, especially as many Beatle fans have, the sound of George when he's acoustic based. And I'm really glad you mentioned Far East Man, Kit, because we've talked here on this show about how George not only had an R&B feel to him, but also this light jazz feel. And I think a lot of that started from working with Tom Scott, who is on this album, and the LA Express is on there, and there's a few tracks that they play on. Harry's on tour, and I think Simply Shady they play on. But this kind of paved the way. Far East Band paved the way for songs like Pure Smoky,
right,
or Learning How to Love You. Songs like those that have a light jazz touch to it. So to me, that showed, a bit of change and a bit of growth there in George. And I like that a lot. And I do love It Is He, Jai Shri Krishna. I love the chant-like nature of the song. I especially love the sound of the flutes. I think Joe said you like the flutes in Dark Horse. I love the sound of the flutes there on It Is He, Jai Shri Krishna. It's kind of like his My Sweet Lord of that year, in a way. And really 9 tracks that I really enjoy listening to. It's just that, like I said, George's catalog is so solid, all the way through, that so many other albums that I think are stronger, but I do like all the songs on here. How would we, who was it?
Oh, no, I was just going to say, it's really interesting when I went back and looked at some of the original reviews at the time this came out. And, and again, I'm not claiming this is one of his all-time best or anything, but it seemed like a lot of the reviews that really panned this album, it wasn't so much about the music as it seemed more personal. It was about the tour that he was on, and, his refusal to play a lot of Beatles songs, or the ones that he did, how he rearranged them and changed some of the lyrics. And, it just seemed like this kind of personal, vendetta against him, that he wasn't being Beatle George.
Well,
And so it was about that and not so much of the record. So if you go back and read some of those reviews, like in Rolling Stone and some of the others, it's just fascinating to read them, that you just want to think, that's, but what about the album? So it's fascinating. So, when we were, reading some of those books and all, it's, I think that colored, our initial impressions. And when you look back,
I think part of the bigger problem was that it was released during the tour, not before. I mean, you just imagine, you can see that maybe their opinions would differ if they had heard it first.
Right.
And then they didn't have all that Beatle BS to talk about in their review. Maybe they could have paid attention to the album a little bit more and not the tour.
Yep, exactly.
It seems to me, from what I remember, the critics were really harsh on George whenever he would get either too personal or too spiritual or too preachy. They didn't like that side of George. They wanted him to be more commercial and upbeat and My Sweet Lord, What Is Life, those songs.
Mhm.
that they could accept. But when
Yeah.
it was more, about himself and saying something that meant a lot to him, not that the songs on All Things Must Pass didn't, but like I've talked about, living in the material world, songs like Be Here Now and The Light That Has Lighted the World. And, there are a lot of
Mhm.
people out there that don't want that side of George.
Right.
So,
Mm.
but I will say, and this is bouncing off what you just said, Tom, as much as I like Dark Horse as an album, it probably would have benefited had George taken his time recording the album and planning the tour better so that the album was out before the tour even started. And I think the sales would have been much better. It went to number 4 on the charts here in the United States. It didn't even chart in the UK.
Right. That's right.
Wow.
Can you believe that?
Jeez.
George
Yeah, I
Harrison's
believe it
album not to even make it
because
on.
I wrote it.
Yeah.
I read that. Yeah, I didn't know that until I looked it up.
Yeah. But just imagine if he didn't rush his way through this album, if he
Mhm.
took his time, maybe put it out early 75 and start the tour after that, it probably would have done a bit better.
Right. Or if he just didn't have so much on his plate that year. I mean, like you said, like you talked about at the beginning, look at everything he was doing that year.
Yeah. He took on a lot. He was going through a lot personally. I
Yep.
mean, yeah. He bit off more than he could chew.
Hmm. All right. So even though we've kind of given our opinions here, where do you think this album rates in the entire canon of George's solo career? Joe?
Well, first thing is that upon this most recent listen, I do enjoy the album more than I have. It's an album that's grown on me over the decades. I enjoy it more now than I did in the earlier days of listening to it. Although I still think that it is not one of his best albums. It's better than Extra Texture, in my opinion. Although I love the first 3 songs on Extra Texture. I always say that.
Hmm.
Love the first 3 songs. It's the whole rest of it I don't like. But there's a few more maybe around on this album than Extra Texture that I enjoy. Probably 3 up from the bottom, something like that, with Sorry Ken, Gone Troppo, and Extra Texture. Uh, that's probably my third one up. Yes, I put Somewhere in England over this as well. I like this Somewhere in England better, probably, than this one. I think it's one of his lower tier albums, but not the lowest. It's you know, just okay. And a couple of standout tracks I really like on it.
Okay. All right, Kit.
Um, yeah, this is really hard because if you had asked me some years ago, I would have said, oh, bottom, but as I've revisited this, I'd say maybe middle tier, because there are a number of songs on here that I like enough. As we've been talking about, the R&B, jazz kind of tracks. And there were only a few that I really disliked. And so, not one of his best, but far from his weakest. So I'd say, yeah, middle tier. Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Tom.
It's a promotion.
Yeah. Well, I could say it's at the bottom of the top half, or it's at the top of the bottom half. Either way you want to put it.
That's what I'm using. Top of the
There you go.
Try to put a positive spin on it.
Yeah, exactly. That's what you got to do. Put a positive spin on it. But yeah, it's right there, right at the cutoff from his better stuff, and then right at the cutoff at the stuff I don't like as much. But solid effort, nonetheless.
All right. I probably would put it kind of what Joe had said, probably from if you look at the bottom, go up 3. Somewhere in England, the way it was released would be below that and probably Extra Texture. But still, like I said, his catalog is solid all the way through. They've got so much worthwhile stuff on every single album that it's worth exploring every single one of them. So,
Well, now we know what album Ken puts at the bottom. Somewhere. in
Yeah, I
England.
was wondering. Please tell us. I was wondering.
Yeah.
Well, it's a toss-up between those two. But I have so much affection for Extra Texture when it first came out because I really love that album. If it wasn't for His Name Is Legs, it would be I'd be rating that out. You requested that song on my
Yes,
show.
well, it was the
Yes.
perfect choice for the theme.
But yeah, I mean, I love every song on Extra Texture except His Name Is Legs.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, I don't like
I
that
think
either.
That means
again,
you love
that's
every
way
song
at the
on all the
bottom.
other ones.
Yeah.
That means you
So
love
Ken-
every song on the other ones.
Ken was doing a live show. Ken was doing a live show, and the theme was the second half. The theme was songs with body parts in the name of the title.
Oh,
And that was the first one. That was the first one that popped into my head.
fits the theme.
And it wasn't Three Legs.
No. it
Very
was
interesting.
yeah.
Well,
Well, the legs are,
that would have been the obvious one.
Yeah.
all right.
Funny stuff.
So how do you guys feel watching the show right now? Do you agree with our opinions?
Well, I know
Let's-
that
let's
Susan
know.
agreed with me on Maya Love. Thank you, Susan. Somebody, one. I only have one person, just one.
There's got to
Oh,
be one person for everybody here in this world.
Yeah.
that's right. So let's see. And Susan also says she would rank the album nearer at the bottom of George's Barrel, sad to say. Astro Jer agrees. Farrell McNulty says to Susan, so sad. Nicely played. Let's see. And Christian agrees. Let's see. Ollie Perry says that Extra Texture and Dark Horse are lowest. Let's see. I'm just
I'm
skimming
surprised
here.
that there are fans that would rate Somewhere in England higher.
Mhm.
I agree with you.
I do.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Somewhere in
So,
England had the 4 original songs that were supposed to be on it. It would have been such a stronger album.
Yep.
Mm.
I agree.
I'm ranking it based on the one there is.
Yep. So, yeah, a lot of people have been saying they really didn't like the cover of Dark Horse.
Okay.
Well, it's a boring cover.
Yeah. Yep. Oh, and let's see. Oh, Tim Allen.
I'm sorry. You mean the front cover of the album?
Yeah. I don't mind it.
It's a school picture, isn't it?
Yeah, the Liverpool
Right.
Institute.
Yeah.
Last photo.
I like the back.
Yeah. Let's see. Tim Allen says, I think this is George's second worst LP.
Oh.
Right
So-
behind what?
Okay, well, it's not Somewhere in England. He
front
just
of-
wrote,
in
I
front
love
of.
Somewhere in England. So, okay, so it's not that.
Hey, Tim. Thank you, Tim. Thank you. Ooh. Not crazy.
So you're not in trouble, Tim.
Hmm.
And Nasser Jair said, near the bottom for me, but I did put the 2014 CD in my car to play it tomorrow going to work. Yeah, I love that version with the demo.
He
Well,
needs something to put his orange juice on.
Yeah.
Yep.
You also mentioned what I Don't Care, the I Don't Care track too. Which was
Yeah, I
recorded-
listened to that.
Yeah.
And I said, I wonder if, because I really wasn't familiar with it, I'll be honest. And I said, this B-side, and I said, let me see if that would have been good for the album. And then right off at the beginning, he says that we got to do a B-side now. So, so I'm like, oh, that's the end of that, and it stinks.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I didn't like it.
Oh,
I
I
didn't
like it. Again,
Yeah,
it's
I
a
didn't
sense
care.
of
I know
humor.
you would like. I'm not even asking. I know you like.
Yeah, I didn't care for that. Yeah. Let's see. Ollie Perry says somewhere in England and Gone Troppo over Dark Horse and Extra Texture.
Mm.
Okay. So let's see. So yeah, those are the. So the consensus seems to be toward the bottom. Yeah, I don't know. I would have said that years ago, but as I said, my estimation's gone up. I'm not saying it's one of his best. Absolutely not. But better than I remembered.
Yeah, me too. It certainly is better than I remember, and better than I thought previously.
Yeah. Absolutely. So worth another listen.
So if there's anyone watching that really hasn't given this album a chance, listen to it. Let us know what you think.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Listen with fresh ears.
Mm-hmm.
Don't listen
Think you'll be
going into it.
surprised.
Oh, his voice is terrible. Don't think that way.
Don't think I'm a woo. Don't even think of that. Don't even think of it. I like it first when he keeps it level. I'm a blue moon. Like or is that later he does that the second time around? I'm a blue moon.
Yep. All right.
But I love it. I love the song.
Yep.
So why don't we go around the horn here and tell everybody what we're up to? We'll start with Joe.
Start with me. Oh, good. Okay. Well, first of all, I'm supposed to be recording a Fab Gab show. You know how these things go. Sometimes they work out, sometimes they don't. I'm supposed to be recording one with a person who's returning to Fab Gab for the first time in over a year, and that's Matthew Street.
Matthew Street.
Wow.
He's going to do a show with me again. You know, not every show, but when he can make it and we have something. And we both were talking about topics and we hit on one. He actually suggested it. It's something that's been on my mind for a long time. It's going to be controversial. It's going to be what we call the marginalization these days of John Lennon and how he's been marginalized and put down and scorned everywhere, that kind of thing. And that's going to be on my channel, me and Mr. Mayo. I don't know when I'm going to put it up, but not too long after we record it. We're supposed to record it in by the time this comes on. I don't know. Supposed to record it in a couple of days, a week or so. Just look for my channel, Fab Gab, and you'll find that. It'll premiere. And also, I have a movie channel called this week. It's called Movies with Mayo this week. So I'm trying to get a laugh out of Tom, but I guess not. Well, you know, and there it is.
You know.
Movies with Mayo. I have all kinds of movie shows on there, and unrelated to Beatles and music. But there you go, and check out Movies with Mayo.
All right, very good, sir. Tom, how about you?
Okay, thank you, Ken. Well, we're going, but we're kind of like going at a little slow pace right at the moment, which is nice. We're taking, we're pumping out shows, but not as much at the moment. We're just kind of, taking it easy. Andy's been busy this month, but our last show was on Paul and the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. We talked about his introduction speeches for other artists, and obviously the No Show and his eventual induction, and that wonderful shirt that a particular person was wearing for that. So, and you all know what that was. This
They
month
should have
March.
marketed that shirt.
Oh, absolutely. There should have been a trademark on that shirt the next day. Absolutely. This month, March, is going to see the 200th episode of Two Legs, which I'm just wow. I can't believe it's happening. But leading up to that, episodes 198 and 199, we're going to be doing a thing called March Macca Madness, where we're going to have a bracket of 64 McCartney singles, and you, the audience, can help us choose which songs make it to the next round. So we'll be doing that this coming Sunday at 12 p.m. Eastern time, and hopefully we'll get the first two rounds done. And then the following Sunday we'll finish it off, and then we'll go into episode 200. I still don't know what that's going to be, but maybe some friends that I have right now can show up. I don't know. We'll see. I haven't really talked to anybody about coming on or anything like that. But we're thinking these next 3 episodes are going to be live shows. So be on the lookout for that. Look on our Facebook page, Two Legs, a Paul McCartney podcast, and you can find the bracket there. You can print it out and you can join us for that, or for those 2 shows. So that'll be fun. Also, 2 months ago, we had Luca Prazzi on, and he talked about doing his brand new book, Paul McCartney, Music is Ideas. And I know Ken just talked to him as well. And, the book, I got it on Amazon, and I had it 2 days later.
Boy, that's
and there
thick.
it is. It's a big one. So it's out there for everybody to get now. So you can go back and scroll down 2 months on the two legs, and you can hear Luca talk about this. And obviously, we'll have him on later in a month or so after. Look at this. We got to read this first,
Wow.
you know.
No, come on.
Boy, I gotta read that bad boy.
You know, and maybe you'll see him here on Talk More Talk as well. So
You might. We just
Yeah,
might.
no.
yeah,
You never know.
you never know. So,
Right.
but email us at twolegspodcast@gmail.com. And please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Two Legs, a
Please.
Paul McCartney podcast. Please.
Please.
But
Please
that
us.
is all.
Yes.
I like that March Madness idea.
Yeah, that's a cool idea. That looks like fun. Yeah.
We know that Sea Moon's going to win. So
Obviously,
Totally.
obviously, everybody's gonna light one up and.
And by the way, I like
Pick that
Seaman
one.
too.
are we
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
I like it.
it? Your
All right. Well, first of all, you can, of course, follow us on Talk More Talk. You can contact us via our email, talkmoresolotalk@gmail.com. We always love to hear from you guys, feedback, any topic ideas you would like to see on this channel. You just might see your idea appear on a future episode. You can follow us on Twitter, Talk More Talk 1, the number 1. You can find us on the web, talkmoretalk.com. Of course, please subscribe to our channel right here,
Please.
and smash that that bell like button. Just punch it. Hit that button to be notified of new episodes. You can also follow us on Facebook and subscribe to our page there, like our page to be notified of new episodes. And you can also listen, if you prefer to just listen to our show, you can do that on virtually any podcasting platform that you prefer. So check us out there. As far as I go, I am working right now on my next class, which starts April 13th. This is the last part of my Roots of Rock and Roll series. This time it is international influences of rock and roll, looking at Cuban, Mexican influences, and African influences. So we're going to go on a trip in different parts of the world, and you won't even need a passport. So we're going to look at things like the influences of Paul Simon's Graceland album, influences that Santana draws from, that kind of thing. It's really been fun to work on. And so hope you'll sign up for the class. There's a link on the Talk More Talk Facebook page, and there's one on my Facebook page as well. So I hope to see you there. Registration is open now. And I'm hoping by the next episode, we will have more information for you on our Fest for Beatle Fans panel. It's
Right.
going to be a very, very special one for many reasons, including this year. And I think they'll be doing something about this at both fests. This is our 5th year that we've done Talk More Talk. I can't believe it. It's been 5 years. So if you come to our panel, you will get a special commemorative something for we're not gonna tell you what it is. But
I had a
special-
honeymooners line already for it. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
But of course, but something special to commemorate our 5th anniversary. So you're really gonna enjoy this, folks. This panel, we have a special person who will be joining us for this panel. So hopefully we will have more information by the next episode, fingers crossed. And of course we will post it on our Facebook page. We'll keep you informed. So that's everything on my end.
Boy, you got a lot on your plate.
Yeah. So when you said iGo, I thought that was going to be the next Apple product or the brand new Apple product. No.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yep, that's it.
I like that seminar series. It's kind of like going on vacation with Kit.
That's right. And as I said, you don't even need a passport. You don't have to pack anything.
Right.
It's perfect.
Good. Because mine's expired.
Okay, I know Kit always says this in our shows, but she didn't say it this time. So I just want to thank Matt at Fab4 Radio for
Thank
carrying
you.
our shows. He carries this show, Talk More Talk. He carries Things We Said Today. He carries my radio show, Every Little Thing. And he carries Two Legs, the Paul McCartney podcast. So
Thank you.
Thank you.
Matt for continuing to support all of our shows here. Great radio station, Fab4 Radio, 24/7 Beatles all the time. Can't beat it. As for my YouTube channel, Ken Michaels Radio, as I said earlier, just did a real sneak preview for Luca Perassi for his brand new book, Tom's Holding Up Again. Music is Ideas, which we all knew came from the song Talk More Talk, right?
No, I didn't. How much I listened to that album.
And just like Tom said, I'll be having Luca on my channel. We'll be on Two Legs, possibly on ours, once we're all done reading the book. I did an interview with Colin Hall, who just recently put out this book, The Songs the Beatles Gave Away.
That was a
There was
marathon.
a radio special that Colin worked on with the BBC DJ, Bob Harris, legendary DJ, on the songs the Beatles gave away. And from all the research that Colin did, he added more research to it and put together this book. This deals only with the Beatle years as a group, songs that they wrote and gave to other people. Really is a fascinating and very thorough look at all this stuff. If you want to learn about all the artists that recorded Lennon-McCartney songs, the songs that the Beatles themselves didn't release, it has all the information about the beginnings of their careers, what songs they recorded that John and Paul gave, a few instances, songs that George gave, and also if he knew the information, what happened to all those artists. And it also tells you the very beginnings of John and Paul writing songs separately and together, that whole history. And it's a great book. And there's even a chapter in here talking about the tour with Johnny Gentle, which I found to be, it's not something you read about too much. I know Mark Lewison covered it, but there's a chapter in there on that. Rita Kelly contributed a chapter about what it was like to see the Beatles at the Cavern, which is really good. So many artists that you've heard about, the obvious ones, Billy J. Kramer, Cilla Black, Peter and Gordon, those are the ones that benefited the most from the songs that John and Paul gave away. But there's all the other ones that only did one song, and many of them are kind of on the obscure side, like Penina, Carlos Mendez. How did that happen? Well, it's all covered in this book. I did an interview with Colin, and if anyone has watched that interview in its entirety, God bless you. It's over 3 hours long.
It's a marathon.
Wow.
Like an hour to me.
Yeah.
There was so much information packed in this book, and we covered just about everything that we could. Everything from the early beginnings through George's work with Doris Troy is in this book. And that's on my YouTube channel. I will be doing this week my second Ultimate Beatles Trivia show. And Joe, being the winner of the last one, we'll see if he can keep the throne.
Right.
And that's going to be Thursday. We're going to record that. It's going to go up right after that.
Yeah, but he's gonna have Mark Lewison on it though.
Yeah.
I'm working on that. We did.
Yeah.
Well, I wasn't there for that, but at the fest.
Yeah, I did
Yes.
one with him.
Yeah, that's true. I
Yep.
wasn't there either.
And Ken Womack. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Well,
Now,
dying
there's
to
a panel.
see your. Yeah, there you go. Absolutely. Well, can't wait to see your opponent. This will be great.
We'll see
Gulp.
if Joe can hang on to the title.
Remember, Joe, don't get any sleep the night before.
Right.
Yeah, that's right. That's how
That's
you.
how I
you,
did it last time.
you whipped our butts. Yeah.
You never know. He could turn into be the Ken Jennings of the Beatles trivia world.
That's right.
On my other podcast show, Things We Said Today, we just did a George Harrison tribute show. We're going to do a show next week with the author of a brand new book on the use of synthesizers in music, and in particular, the Moog synthesizer.
Ooh.
Ooh.
Beatles did
Interesting.
that. On Every Little Thing, my radio show, don't forget you can always listen to that on demand at wfdu.fm. They post 2 shows of mine. Each one runs for 2 weeks. And so you don't have to listen at a specific time at any of the radio stations, although that's a great thing too. But if you want to know anytime during the week when you can hear my radio show, Every Little Thing, go to WFDU.FM. And don't forget my weekly Beatles trivia anyway. That's on my website, kenmichaelsradio.com. You can get it on my YouTube channel with the show, and you can always go right to my website with his prizes every single week. You can pick one of 10 great prizes, like the McCartney Legacy book, for example. So again, that's at kenmichaelsradio.com. Please subscribe to all of our channels. Don't forget Toppermost of the Poppermost with Kit.
Yep.
And thanks to all of you for joining us tonight for this show. Hope you enjoyed our comments and our review of the Dark Horse album. We'll do another one, another listen soon. And if there's an album you want us to talk about, let us know here in the comments.
Absolutely.
Thanks to all of you guys for watching.
Yeah.
And till next time, for Kit, Tom, and Joe, this is Ken Michaels saying, well, it's obvious. Bye-bye, love. We'll see you next time.